Welcome to The Explainer. You know, we love taking complicated topics and making them simple. And today, we're tackling an element that I think almost everyone gets wrong, uranium.
So, let's just start with a quick question. When I say the word uranium, what pops into your head? For most of us, it's probably, nuclear weapons, hazmat suits, super secret government stuff, right? But what if I told you that whole picture is just plain wrong?
Because here's the kicker. It is all around you, right now. And that one simple, kind of shocking fact, well, it changes everything. It's the key to seeing this famous element in a completely new light. All right, let's get right into it. To really get a handle on uranium, the first thing we have to do is just tear down this whole myth that it's some rare, exotic substance from a sci-fi movie. The reality is actually way more down to earth. So what are we really talking about here? Well, if you strip away all the hype, uranium is just a metal. It's silvery white, and it is super dense. I mean, we're talking almost 19 times denser than water. And get this, it's actually a terrible conductor of heat and electricity. It's simply the heaviest element that you can find naturally in any real quantity. Okay, and now we get to the big one. The single most surprising thing you'll probably learn about uranium. If you remember just one thing from this, make it this. Uranium is not rare, not even close. In fact, it's so common, it's kind of mind-blowing.
So just how common are we talking? Well, think about gold. You know, that super rare, super precious metal, okay? Uranium is about 500 times more abundant in the Earth's crust than gold. Yeah, 500 times. Let's look at the actual numbers to see what that means. The data really lays it all out. If you took a random scoop of the Earth's crust with a million little particles in it, you'd find almost 3 of those particles are uranium. Now for gold, you'd find 0.0031. It's not even in the same league, it's a total blowout. So where is all this uranium hiding? Well, the answer is pretty much everywhere. It's naturally in rocks, it's in the soil, it's in the water. And yeah, believe it or not, there are tiny, tiny traces of it inside you and me right now. It's just a basic building block of our planet. Okay, so if this stuff is everywhere, what's the big deal? Why is it so special? The secret is in its family. See, not all uranium atoms are identical. They come in slightly different flavors called isotopes, and that's where things get really interesting. When you dig a chunk of uranium out of the ground, it's basically a mix. The vast majority of it, we're talking over 99%, is an isotope called uranium-238. Then you have the superstar U-235, the one we use for nuclear power. That makes up less than a single percent of the total. And then there's a tiny sliver of another one, U-234. And here's why that tiny little percentage is so incredibly important. U-235 is what we call fissile. That's just a fancy word meaning you can split its atoms apart and release a huge amount of energy. U-238, the really common one, can't do that. But it's fertile. That means we can actually transform it into a new fuel. Think of it this way. U-235 is like a dry log, ready to burn. U-238 is like a green log that you can cure and turn into firewood. Okay, so we've got the science down. Now let's jump in the time machine. How did we even figure this stuff out in the first place? It's a pretty cool story, actually. It's got a brand new planet, a chemist who wouldn't give up, and an accidental discovery that literally turned the world of physics upside down. It all starts way back in 1789. This chemist, Martin Klaproth, finds a new element. A new planet, Uranus, had just been spotted, so he thought, hey, that's a cool name. And he named it uranium. It took another half-century before anyone could even get a pure chunk of the metal. The real game changer, though, came in 1896, and it was a total fluke. A guy named Henri Becquerel noticed that some uranium was giving off these weird, invisible rays. He had no idea what it was. It was Marie and Pierre Curie who came along and finally gave it the name we all know today, radioactivity. So what's the big picture here? We've established that uranium is pretty common on land, right? But what if I told you the biggest stash of it isn't in some mine in the desert? No, it's somewhere that covers more than 2/3 of our planet. Just let this number sink in for a second. 4 billion tons. That's how much uranium scientists estimate is just dissolved in the oceans. To give you some context, that's 1,000 times more than all the uranium we know about on land, all of it, combined. Now there is a catch. The concentration is super, super low. We're talking parts per billion. It's like trying to find a single drop of ink in a swimming pool. But because the oceans are just so unbelievably massive, the grand total is astronomical. The challenge, of course, is figuring out an efficient way to get it. But if we can crack that code, it's basically an almost endless supply of fuel.
And that brings us to a pretty mind-bending final thought. We started out thinking of uranium as this rare, scary thing that we need to keep locked up tight. But what if its real identity is just an abundant, natural part of our world? And what if the biggest supply isn't buried deep in the ground, but is just swirling all around us in the sea? That really changes how you think about it, doesn't it?